Lindsay, Task Force 47, well handled.
If you live in an American community of any size, you probably know what to do in a medical emergency. You call 911.
The dispatcher sits at the center of these million-dollar EMS systems and makes critical decisions regarding who goes, how they go, when they go, how many of them go, and yet the dispatcher in most places has had a little more education than a layperson. In California, the minimum standard is 40 hours. Now that's less medical training than a hairdresser gets.
If you live in an American community of any size, you probably know what to do in a medical emergency. You call 911. That's the number where you know you'll get expert helpers to the scene in a hurry. You'll talk to a trained dispatcher, someone who can identify the problem and get the right assistance on the way and tell you what to do till it gets there. In better than half the nation's communities, the fire department handles these calls with specially trained personnel answering the phone. But are they properly trained? Is it possible that sometimes you might be worse off calling 911 than if you did not call 911? Some experts think it's all too possible. Take the case of the Lamb family in Los Angeles and the terrible morning they had the day after Christmas last year. Sidney Lamb was at home with his wife Sephora and his two children, David and Mandy. On a Saturday morning, December 26, 1987, Mrs. Lamb was in the bedroom when Sidney heard his son David call out to him.
She was in a lot of pain. And I knew, and I called the paramedics, and I said, my mom isn't feeling well, I need a paramedic. And I described the symptoms as best I could, like what she told me.
Fire department.
I need a paramedic, please.
What's the problem there, sir?
My mom is experiencing pain in her back and her stomach. Her hands are tingling.
What happened? What was she doing right before this happened?
What are you doing right before this happened, Mom?
Is she anxious about something?
She's just laying in bed.
She's just laying in bed?
Were you anxious about anything, Mom?
Sounds like she might be hyperventilating, sir.
Yeah, does that require a paramedic?
No, not really.
I acted on what he told me because I thought he was the authority. He was calming me down, and I was being very calm because my mom needed to be calmed down. I thought she was hyperventilating. That's what he told me.
And I hear after a few seconds that they're giving him a hard time. They're not sending out an ambulance. I get on the phone, and I say, my wife's not feeling well. We need an ambulance.
Look, can you get a paramedic over here? My wife says that she's feeling well. Sir, we don't come out for people that aren't feeling well. Oh, okay. Okay. She's not feeling well. It could be serious. Well, she has vibrations in her chest. Pardon me? Sir, did you hear what I talked to when I talked to the other person? No, I didn't. Okay. Sounds to me like she's experiencing a hyperventilation. Now, I need to talk to her to verify that.
He did request to speak to my wife directly, and we put my wife on the phone.
I can't talk. Dad.
Ma'am.
What?
What's wrong with you? Why are you breathing so rapidly?
I'm not breathing well. I'm having pain.
I can hear you breathing rapidly.
I'm having pain in my stomach and in my back, and my arms are all tingling.
Yes, you're hyperventilating, ma'am.
Oh, I'm having the terrible pains all over.
Fingers numb?
My hands are tingling.
Okay, let me talk to the young boy that was there.
Okay.
And he says, breathe into a brown paper bag or a paper bag for 15 minutes. My son ran out of the room to get the paper bag, I guess after the conversation ended.
You didn't argue with him?
No, we called him thinking that these people knew what they're doing. He says it's hyperventilation. It's hyperventilation.
They're the authority, aren't they?
Exactly.
David and Sidney Lamb kept Mrs. Lamb breathing into a paper bag for the next 4 or 5 minutes. But when she didn't seem to get any better, Sidney Lamb called 911 again.
Yeah, my son just called a few moments ago to describe my wife's symptoms, and they said it was like hyperventilation.
Yes, sir.
Hello?
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
And now she's throwing up. Is that part of hyperventilation?
Okay, is her breathing slowed down now?
Her breathing has slowed down a little bit.
And the second dispatcher comes up with another gem. Oh, it might be a touch of food poisoning.
I just told you to see a doctor. I'll take her to the emergency room and have her be seen by a doctor. Has she been seen by a doctor?
No. This just happened 5 minutes ago.
Might be a touch of food poisoning.
And when he said, you can take her to the hospital if you want to, we immediately got her dressed. She was in a nightie. And she says as she's lying on the bed, I don't think I can make it to the car. She was feeling very weak. So I say, honey, why don't you try? And we picked her up. I mean, we helped her up from the side of the bed, and she leaned on both of us, my son and myself, and we took her to the car. And she made it to the car, and that's where she finally convulsed.
While Mrs. Lamb was in the car, David Lamb called 911 a third time and told the dispatcher there was a heart attack victim.
Heard of woman? Called a heart attack victim?
This time there was no diagnosis. The paramedics were sent. The dispatcher hung up.
We're on our way. Thank you.
Paramedics arrived some 7 minutes after the last call was made and got to work trying to revive Mrs. Lamb. But it was too late. A total of 29 minutes had elapsed from the time of David Lamb's first call until the ambulance arrived. She was pronounced dead at the hospital an hour later. Cause of death? Heart attack. Ed Hurtado doesn't think the dispatchers have been trained properly. He's president of the United Paramedics of Los Angeles and a working paramedic himself.
80% of the calls that come into our fire department are not fires. They are medical emergencies. Our department last year responded to some 260,000 calls. 205,000 of them were emergency medical calls.
The person who decided whether to send, what to send, and how soon was not a paramedic.
And had virtually no medical training to do the job that he's being asked to do.
What kind of training do they get before they become dispatchers?
They are provided with essentially an indoctrination course that teaches them, in my opinion, how to make the same mistakes that their predecessors have made.
One of the things the dispatcher instructed the family to do was to have Mrs. Lamb breathe in and out of a paper bag.
She has to breathe in and out into a paper sack. All right, let her breathe out of the bag, then. Cover her nose and mouth, cover her nose and mouth with it. And it's the bag. Have her close her eyes and relax. Would she? Right? Have her do that. She has to do that for 15 minutes. If you're positive, that's what it is. That's what it is.
The first time the lady called, she was told, put a bag over her nose and mouth and have her breathe in and out of it for at least 15 minutes. That is the worst advice that she could possibly have gotten.